used to these. There, now can you hear me? I call to order the 2025 meeting of the City of Stoughton Board of Review. It is 10 a.m. The first agenda item is to nominate the chair. So are there any nominations for chair?
Sitting up there in the chairs.
Okay, we have one nomination for chair. Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Last time, are there any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Chair.
All right, thanks everybody, I think. Yep, so next item up is to nominate a vice chair, and I will open nominations for a vice chair.
I'll nominate Greg.
Sure. Why not?
All right, are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Abstain.
And are any opposed?
You're not
All
gonna
right.
keel over dead or anything, all right.
I could, did you ever see the article about the guy that feigned a heart attack at all of his court hearings so that he wouldn't have to? All right. Okay, thanks, Ray. All right, let's see.
Above the page.
Yep, so that is I'm just looking at versus our agenda here, so, okay, so the assessment role for me, or the assessor will approach the clerk and complete the affidavit and present the assessment role for review, and the members will review them. Yep.
Having been elected to the City of Stoughton. That's okay. Swear that I will support the Constitution. Swear that I will support the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin.
And will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
And will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God, congratulations.
help me God.
You are sworn in.
Woohoo.
We forgot to do the confetti drop.
We'll get a nice Etsy.
Yes.
Or do you want me to date him?
Yeah, why don't you send me your name? Good.
And if you could just send one of those so that I can take it. The other two will be yours.
Okay.
Technically all yours.
The roll now.
All right.
For your review,
And
it's actually split into 2 books this year.
before we begin reviewing them, Chair Jensen, or Vice Chair Jensen has pointed out we've forgotten to approve the minutes of the 2024 Board of Review meeting. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 2024 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Christina and second by Greg. Any edits or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, those meeting minutes are approved.
Is there anything further that we need to do to address item number 4, the Board of Review procedures and certification requirements? We need to make a statement or anything? Okay.
That we are certified and compliant with open meetings laws and we have a quorum present. See, that's why we have people here catching these things.
Right there, paragraph.
Fantastic. All right, members have reviewed all the books thoroughly, every single entry in each one of those. No, we looked through a representative example of them all. Now I've got to go through some boring stuff, so bear with me. This is on procedural things. We are recording this meeting, so we can review this meeting at any point in time after. Then I have to go through some policies regarding the sworn and written and telephone testimonies and requests for waivers. These are as follows, so bear with me. It's a couple of paragraphs of, legal language. All right, no person will be allowed to appear before the Board of Review to testify to the Board of Review by telephone or to contest the amount of any assessment or of real or personal property if the person has refused a reasonable written request by certified mail of the assessor to view the property. Next is no person may appear before the Board of Review, testify to the board by telephone, or contest the amount of any assessment unless at least 48 hours before the first meeting of the board, or at least 48 hours before the objection is heard, if the objection is allowed under State Statute 70.473A. That person provides to the clerk of the Board of Review notice as to whether the person will ask for the removal of a member of the Board of Review, and if so, which member, and provides a reasonable estimate of length of time the hearing will take. That was literally all one sentence. When appearing before the Board of Review, the objectioning person shall specify in writing the person's estimate of the value of the land and of the improvements that are subject of the person's objection, and specify the information that the person used to arrive at that estimate. No person may appear before the Board of Review, testify to the board by telephone, or object to a valuation if that valuation was made by the assessor or the objector using the income method of valuation, unless the person supplies title assessor with all the information about income and expenses as specified in the assessor's manual under State Statute 73.032A. That assessor requests. The City of Stoughton has an ordinance for the confidentiality of information about income and expenses that is provided to the assessor under this paragraph that provides exceptions for persons using that information in the discharge of duties imposed by law or the duties of the officer or by order of a court. The information that is provided under this paragraph, unless a court determines that it is inaccurate, is not subject to the right of inspection and copying under State Statutes 19.35, number 1. The board shall hear upon oath by telephone all ill or disabled persons who present to the board a letter from a physician, surgeon, or osteopath that confirms their illness or disability. No other persons may testify by telephone unless the board, in its discretion, has determined to grant a property owner's or their representative's request to testify under oath by telephone or written statement. All right, those are all the rules that we're setting up. Let's see. So when in the hearing procedure, it'll be, so the person that's filing the objection will testify and present the evidence first. The assessor may then ask the objector questions. The Board of Review may then ask questions after that. After the objector has testified, any other witnesses present in support of the objector will testify. Each witness is subject to the 2 questions from the assessor and Board of Review members. Following all witnesses of the objector, the assessor shall present his or her case in support of the assessment. The assessor shall be subject to any questions of the objector first. then the assessor shall be subject to questions by the Board of Review members. The objector may present any other evidence which again is subject to questions of the assessor or of the Board of Review members. The assessor may provide any other evidence, again subject to questioning. And after all evidence has been submitted under oath, the objector may first make a brief summary of his or her case to the Board of Review, and the assessor may follow with a brief summary of his or her case. After each summary, the taking of testimony will be closed, and the Board of Review will deliberate on the testimony in open session, either immediately following the testimony or at a later date to be announced. All right. Were all those clear? We got a procedure down? At least you guys will get to talk first and then you know, kind of like a court case, sort of, you know, it's like you do this and then questions and then they do that and questions and then we get it all together at the end. All right. With those, then we can introduce the first case.
Before I do that,
Before introducing, I just want to state that we have 4 members of the Board of Review that have been certified, and the training affidavit has been submitted to the state of Wisconsin. We have Christina, Phil, Patrick, and Tim. So we have met those requirements as well. So the first case here is the property owner is Lawrence W. Liebman. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay. The property owner resides at 116 East Milwaukee Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and the tax key for this property is 281-0511-08151821. This property, the assessment that is being objected is $241,000. I do not have a breakdown of the land or the improvements, but that was the total assessment at this time. So, moving forward, I can swear you in. If you would raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. So the Board of Review wants you to understand that under state law, the Board of Review is required to uphold the assessor's valuation of your property as being correct, unless you, by your testimony, can now show the assessor's evaluation to be incorrect. In other words, the burden of proof is upon you as the taxpayer. Please acknowledge that you understand this statement.
I understand.
Okay. For the record, will you please state your name and address, and will you also state what, in your opinion, is the fair market value of your property?
Lawrence Liebman, 116 East Milwaukee Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, 53589. The value as determined by the measurements that I took, which conflict with the original tax record that was sent to me by assessors, accurate assessors, is they state $241,000, and I claim that it's 200. Where is that number? 215,756 by measurement of my tape rule on the land. I measured from the front property line, that is the south side of East Milwaukee, to the back of the development for the primary land, which is valued higher than the secondary or residual land that goes down to the wetlands and where the storm swale is. And that is 61.5 feet. The east-west measurement is 66 feet even. That comes up with 0.0. Instead of 0.25 acres, it comes up with 0.093 acres. So I set up a ratio to figure the land of the primary valuation and the now increased land of the secondary valuation, and subtracted the difference in valuation and came up with the 215,746. The residual land along the stormwater swale and back, which also has a city easement for sewer on it, remains the same. I also measured the basement, which is claimed as a full basement on the tax record. It's an irregular shape. Maybe that was the origin of the mistaken measurements, but it's actually 0.72, excuse me, which is less than 3/4 of a full basement. Also, to get to the basement, the access from the kitchen on the first floor is a hatch door that measures 18 inches, and it's more of a ladder than the stairs, certainly not to code. I don't think that was figured into the valuation either, but I think we're here just for the land, to object to the land, but Kim Anderson at Accurate Assessors said I could bring up the basement measurements at this time as well, that they might be considered for next year's tax rolls, if not this year's as well. Another question I would have is, since I bought the property in 1985 and it's been overvalued by their measurements of a full basement and the primary land being overmeasured, is there any compensation for that, or how is that addressed? That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. So when you, are you by trade or by profession a surveyor or any kind of certification when it comes to your land measurements?
Yeah, I was chief lab tech at Nelson Industries originally, and then Cummins, it's across from Pick and Save, until 2005. I worked there for 28 years as a technical role. I had to make measurements in weight and unit measurements all the time.
Sure, but when it comes to property, physical, real estate property, do you have any professional experience with measurements or like a plat surveyor or anything of that kind?
No, I do not.
Okay, okay. And to your knowledge, the basement, that's always been, the basement has been the basement. That hasn't had any change since the original construction of the property, correct?
It has had no change.
Okay, wonderful. And part of your submission of, where did I put that darn sheet?
Other than the original cistern on the east side, that's been filled in and blocked off, because we don't use cisterns these days
Sure.
for anything.
Sure. And so part of what you submitted with your objection was you noted that the basement is, oh no, that I was thinking it was noting something about a bathroom, but that's just 3/4 of the basement is not completed. All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I have a question for myself. I've known Larry for, well, since he started working at Towns and Nelson, yeah.
I remember.
So I'm thinking that I need to recuse myself.
All right, anything further that you want to add to it, Larry? Or are you done with questioning?
I'm done.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions and no further testimony into that, then I will close the testimony for the case and open up the deliberations in the case by asking the Board of...
I do have testimony to give.
Oh, sorry. You jumped ahead.
Sorry, if that's
No
okay.
worries. Yes, yes, yes.
And I have to apologize, my toner didn't really want to print when it came to your stuff, so it's rather small, so I hope your glasses are really up to date. And the toner didn't make it easier, but I will verbally go over it, but I wanted you to have a physical copy as well. There's one for each of you if you wanted to pass it down. Thank you. So you're getting two sheets there. One sheet, I try to go through the property owner's note that they had sent with their objection, just so we can cover the concerns that they had on their property, just as far as maybe what they were seeing and, you know, how the property record card looks, as well as just kind of how the property value is in comparison to the sales analysis. One of the things, I should probably bring up a copy for myself, you say. Okay, so when it comes to, I just kind of have a note there of the property on the top, just as far as 2024's value, 2025 value, and the percentage of change year over year. This property is mildly below the residential average for this year. So that's just something to kind of note up top. Next, I'm just noting that it's a duplex as far as the main dwelling on the property. The basement, I was noting it more of a bathroom, not the basement itself. If it's been a 3/4 basement, meaning not a full basement since the age of construction, that would have been the consideration. It's not counted as finished space. Most often, even the sales analysis, we're looking at completed square footage. We will flag the property for a 2026 on-site visit just to confirm it matches what the property owner is saying. We can adjust our record, but if it's been that way since age of construction, we've considered it as it's been. So even though we might sometimes do a data point update, that doesn't necessarily change the value in certain circumstances. This would be one of those that I would say is more of a cleaning of the record, but not, if it wasn't a recent adjustment of some kind, it wouldn't be something that I would say I'm going to adjust value for. As far as the land, and just a reminder, you can't contest land only, so that isn't something necessarily the property owner per state statutes can address. But I do want to note that and I put a note in here even from last year's, or 2023's, I should say, 2 years ago, PR 130, which is open book conversations. Jeff, who used to be the statutory assessor, had a note in here that he had spoke with the property owner, and they had the conversation as far as not buildable, that it was steep, and he gave negative influences, which is a percentage that applies to the land class. So even when we adjust value as we would uniformly for certain land classes, that negative influence on a percentage basis will always remain on that land class for his property unless we physically remove it. So even if land values were to increase, that percentage still is taken to effect. It's not a hard number, so it's going to equally contribute year over year if we adjust values. In this year, land values going up, that 90% negative influence was still a factor on each of the three classes. I probably could have done a better job at kind of smoothing the information in order of which I'm talking about. If you kind of go towards the bottom of the page there, I have the three land classes that this property has, which is all residential. But the first 10,000 square feet we count as residential primary land. That I'm noting as has a negative 15% impact on the land value. So again, he won't be valued at full residential land value. It's always going to have, until we would remove it, a negative 15% land influence on the value. The secondary, which you'll see there's secondary residential land as well as residual land value, kind of law of diminishing return there as far as how big your lot is. The first 10,000 square feet is generally, for at least the city of Stoughton, the most valuable. That secondary lot or space beyond that first 10,000 square feet, a little bit less valuable. That residential then a little bit less valuable, but each, that secondary and that residual, have a negative 90% value. Those are very steep discounts as far as impact on land goes. So those, again, had been put on the land when that discussion had been happening, and that has carried on even to this year. So there is a impact for the topics that the property owner has discussed on the land. Again, negative 15% for the primary, negative 90% for both the secondary and residual land. So just wanted to address. I wouldn't recommend giving additional discounts for what I'm seeing. It's already being addressed within the current valuation. Again, he didn't address it, the property owner did not address it right now, but in some of the communication I had seen, kind of notes that we, as the assessors, had applied certain valuation, like siding or remodel. I try to put extra notes in here, or just a screen print essentially of our permit screen. We do get all permits, or we should be getting all permits that are issued from the city into our record, and that's stuff that then we decide, do we need to investigate more? Do we need to find out more information? We might need to take a photo, things of that nature. I also wanted to include in here a note from when the bigger kind of remodels or siding and trim were noted in the property record. We're going to note on the property record card that we received those permits, but that doesn't mean that we assess it as it sits with the permit. Again, we do additional investigation. That did happen, and it even notes in here that we had talked to the building inspector. They had given more of a background as far as what impact the siding had, or that remodel. The remodel permit itself is for nearly $60,000, and per the investigation we did with the building inspector, and they noted where the value kind of went with that, which was more removal of walls, not necessarily improvement. So really, for all of that work, for over $60,000 per permit, we added about $10,000 worth of value. So pretty minor in comparison to kind of how those permits look. And that's just a reflection. Again, we take the information, but then we do additional investigation and inspections, and then we apply appropriate value from there. So didn't want to be misleading that we assumed that then he got all new siding, or that it was a higher or better than average remodel of kitchen and bathroom. Again, we did not make those assumptions. We did further investigation on that. So I do think that there is appropriate valuation at those times. So I just wanted to address those things. Oh, and then as far as the land itself and size, I did check with what the county had as well. We are very close. We're in the middle right now with Dane County of doing any reconciliation as far as acreage discrepancy. The county and Accurate is very close as far as square footage or land without an actual plat or professional surveyor taking place. I'm not going to take a property owner's personal measurements of that without having a professional that would actually know the lot line, stake it, and give a report. If that were to take place, we could take that under consideration, submit that, and talk with the county to get any sort of acreage adjusted. But as far as my research right now, that's not something that I would take in consideration from the property owner's personal measurements, especially not having that. As I can understand the relationship maybe in other measurements, but it doesn't, in my opinion, appropriately apply to remeasuring your own lot without being a professional surveyor in this situation. So I wouldn't recommend any change as far as square footage, and I don't think that would apply retroactively for prior years either. The last thing I want to say, because I always just want to kind of note where the property sits as comparison just overall then, and that's where that second sheet came from. This is noted as a duplex, and I put as many other duplexes in there. And again, that this year was published online as far as our sales analysis. So looking at other duplexes, one of the things I'll take a look at is style is important, size, age, and then I kind of filtered down there to the price per square foot. I noted the 115 about dollar per square foot. So that's the property or the dwelling value divided by the square feet of this specific property. It landed about $115 a square foot. You can see there on that sales analysis, I don't think anything was as low as that, just in comparison. So just kind of at an overall, he's still lower than the sales on a dollar per square foot basis of other similar style duplex properties. So I didn't have any recommendation of change, just based on what the information the property owner had provided, re-looking at our analysis, and stand with where the property value had been set. Sorry, didn't mean to be long-winded there, but I hope that addressed all topics.
All right, Mr. Liebman, do you have any questions of the assessor based on her testimony?
Yeah, so will I get the opportunity to have you as the assessor, the Board of Review, or the city building inspector, or anyone you might deem capable of coming over to my property at city or otherwise expense other than mine and confirm my measurements? Also, at the end of my developed land, the grade or pitch starts to slope down very quickly, and there's no way to get heavy equipment back there to regrade that now that the two stall garage is on the west, since there's a retaining wall on the east of the neighbor's property, and there's a wetland in back, there's no way to get in and regrade it to make that what you call primary property actually primary, that is without the slope or the steep grade that starts right at the end of the development, which is the deck and the patio, small deck and small patio that were added on in that redevelopment you mentioned. So the question is, will someone come over and confirm my measurements?
Yeah. Assessors aren't surveyors, so we're not going to survey the land, the lot line, as far as it comes to acreage. I can discuss with the county any recommendation, but generally that comes with a professional surveyor that would provide a report that then would be something we take into consideration. But I can also talk to the county if there's any options and flag you for 2026, but I can't guarantee that us or somebody from the county or the municipality would provide that service. That would be free of charge.
Yeah, I did have it surveyed twice, once for the garage that went up in 2017, and then since there was a landscaping issue with the neighbor downhill of me, that is to the west, I needed to put a retaining wall in, and I was required, according to Steve Kittleson, the building inspector of the city of Stoughton, to have the survey done again. So I hired the same surveyor. He came over and came up with the same numbers.
You could submit that. I haven't seen it. It hasn't been supplied, but that's something you could have submitted.
Well, the city has it if Steve Kittleson has recorded that measurement. He approved the building permits for that garage and for the retaining wall.
Okay. That wouldn't be something that's normally furnished then to the assessor, but you could furnish that as part of your testimony or any future conversations you have with the assessor, and we can take that into consideration. And then we'll talk to the county because they ultimately are record keeper of the land.
Okay. And the grade or the pitch of the land at the back of my deck and patio, is there a exact number of the grade, like 15% more or less, where you'd say this can't be considered or classified as primary land?
I think the land is appropriately adjusted for what you're describing, as you originally discussed with the previous assessor.
So you're saying no, that pitch or grade of the land going down toward the wetland does not affect the classification of the primary land into secondary land, as I was claiming on my objection.
I think it's appropriately adjusted for what you've described and for how your land is.
So the answer is there is no exact pitch or grade that would change the classification of my primary property, no matter how steep. And considering that I can't get back there to regrade it since it's landlocked in the sense that I can't get heavy equipment in anyway. No one could through the wetland or around the sides without bulldozing over someone else's property.
Was there still a question in there? I'm so sorry if I had missed it.
Yeah, is there a grade determination for primary classification of land?
Primary versus secondary isn't based on a pitch. It's normally based on a size. So a typical discount that we'd apply to land impact might be 10 to 20%. The fact that yours is already at a negative 90% for both secondary and residual is a really steep discount. It's never going to be discounted to zero unless that would be property that you no longer owned.
You're right. It's not the percentage discount I'm contesting as much as the
size itself.
measurement, the size of the primary versus the size of the secondary.
No.
That's where the adjustment, in my opinion, was applied.
No, it wouldn't be based on the pitch.
Well, the pitch would affect the developability or ability to be developed of the land. It can't be developed for any building purposes. I would never get a building permit from the city to do anything back there again. I couldn't.
Yeah. So part of where we can put a negative influence is the reason somewhat of buildable, what's buildable, what's not buildable, irregular lot size, things of that nature. That's taken care of in that discount as far as that negative 90%.
And the size of the primary land versus the secondary?
That's a standard size.
Cannot be adjusted, you're saying? For any reason?
What?
In my case?
it wouldn't be adjusted for, again, there's a negative influence on the first 10,000 square feet. That is a standard lot size. We would not adjust it based on slope or other factors that you're noting.
Well, using the word standard, I would argue that it's not standard property because of the slope and the wetland right beyond it, sloping down to the wetland and the landlocked, so to speak, ability of getting equipment in to do anything as far as development goes.
Sure. And in the case of uniformity, we uniformly have put the first 10,000 of square feet for residential land as primary land. And then from there, if there's something irregular about that land, we've made adjustments to that.
So the answer is on reclassifying land, you can't do that for any reason, from primary
I
to
would not
secondary
do that.
classification.
Correct, I'm not, yeah, that would be something the assessor would adjust for.
Pretty hard rule, hard and firm. That's my comment.
All right, Board of Review, do you have any questions of the assessor's testimony?
I was just considering, and I'm guessing that this is, since this is a historical situation with the access to the basement, with the mentioned access to the basement being via like a hatch or ladder, I'm guessing that does not enter into anything as far as the measurement of the basement, since that's all historical from when the house was constructed. Okay.
At point of construction, that might have been part of the initial valuation, an attribute, but at this point of time, based on age of the property, I'm looking primarily at the finished square footage, not the unfinished square footage, which would include the basement then. So to that point, we would want to clean up the record if that is the case, just on a square footage basis, but it's not going to impact the value. Again, if that were to change the access point, the finish of the basement, that then would be a factor of input, but not as it sits right now.
All right, any further questions from board? Mr. Lieben?
The building, you just speak of the age, the historic age of it, is not platform construction, it is balloon construction, which is, if you don't know what that means, it means that the space in the walls goes all the way from the basement to the ceiling, so the fire safety isn't quite there, and the sturdiness of the building isn't quite up to other buildings that you may be comparing my property to. That might be a factor in the evaluation too, I would think. Balloon framing stopped about in the 1930s, from what I could gather in researching it, because of those reasons just mentioned.
Anyone have anything further to add into the case?
That's why I try to leave a lot of the duplexes on there to showcase some of those early 1900, 1930, for similar type of material or design build. Age of construction is really important at that age. I wanted to make sure I kind of noted those sale price per square foot as well. As an owner of an 1880s farmhouse, I can understand.
All right, with no further testimony in this, then I'll close the testimony for this case, and open up for deliberations from the Board of Review members, and we will have to assess whether we believe the assessor's valuation is correct or incorrect. And noting that we are under the assumption the assessor is correct.
It appears that, going off of the assessor's information without having So if the property owner could submit their previous survey, that might have potentially some sort of bearing on it, but without having that survey that was done relatively recently, sounds like. Seems like with the calculations for the property size and everything, there's not a whole lot we can do as far as recommending changing this valuation.
That's kind of my interpretation as well. The size of the lot is not really, it's not really debatable particularly. And so from a uniformity perspective, to make sure that there's fairness across, that's how I'm understanding the testimony, that 10,000 square feet is going to be applied to most properties. And then looking at the comparable sales, which can be challenging in any environment, and this environment is a little bit challenging as well. Looking at the comparable sales, there's especially looking at the older homes, the square foot, the value per square foot seems in line, if anything, a little low. So I would agree.
You're good too, Christina? All right, after hearing the evidence of that, the Board of Review determines that the assessor's valuation is correct. And the decision incorporates the understanding that the assessor is presumed correct and that the objector had the burden of proof in there. I think had we had seen maybe that survey result, we might have been able to work with that a little bit. I don't know if we need to vote and motion and vote, or?
Take a roll call vote if you'd like.
Okay, yep.
Phil?
We vote aye
Aye or yes?
to accept, yes.
Christina?
Yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Abstain.
And
Greg is
abstained.
recusing from this case.
Yes.
And Tim?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Liebman.
You're welcome. Thanks for the attention.
All right.
I notice on Board of Review determination. Just that they,
This is confirmed.
this is what it was, yep, and this is, they just voted, and this is what will remain as.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the other two cases that I had objections for were Mr. Sam Eifert, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, and that one has been satisfied, and he will not be present.
Very good.
And then we have the objection from Walmart, and they submitted the request of waiver of board of review.
I would support that waiver to circuit court.
Need a motion for that?
We can take a roll call.
So the motion is to accept waiver for the Walmart objection. This would mean it would go into a circuit court hearing, correct?
Any questions? I'll take a roll call.
Do we
Phil?
need a motion and a second for it, or how do we?
We probably should, just to make it official. So would anyone tender a motion for waiver?
I'll move to waive to circuit court.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second. Give it to her.
Now we'll roll call.
Now we'll do a roll call.
Yep.
Excuse me. Christina.
Here.
Phil.
Aye.
Greg.
Yes.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
And Tim. Okay. We'll move that one on. And the other gentleman present, I do not have an objection form from, so,
You would have to, since there was no form filled out before the 48 hours, the objector as a walk-in would have the ability to state why they have good cause for not filling out the form within 48 hours. You would then, as a board, vote if you'd want to hear that case. And then if you do vote yes, the assessor has the right and the property owner to allow 48 hours to prepare a case. And then they would have to complete the form in order to be heard.
All right. Maybe introduce yourself and why the 48-hour.
Yeah, I'm Dale Beck for Beck Enterprises of Dane County, LLC. And we've been kind of going back and forth with emails and phone calls, and I've been back and forth to Florida. I thought that we were going to actually work something out between me and Lori, we just never, for whatever reason, I got a copy of all my emails. There was just never a response back from her. So for whatever reason, there was no communication going on. So if I didn't think I was going to work something out with her with the information that I had, I would have went ahead forward and do what I had to do to comply with the statute or whatever it is with your 48-hour notice. But it just didn't happen with my schedule, and I got the dates. I didn't know the date was coming this soon. I started calling, not her, but I started leaving messages in April. And then going through my emails, they started in the beginning of, I think, May 3rd. And then they continued through all of May. And with no response, I was kind of left in the air.
All right. Does the board wish to hear this case?
I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about, the process and what the requirements are as far as the communication on where the burden is as far as understanding going from open book to being here and how that might work. I don't know if who's responsible to make sure that everybody understands what the process is and what the dates would be for that.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Please.
Sure. The onus is on the property owner. The dates are posted on the notice. That's why there's postings of those dates. A general rule of thumb is you always want to file. You can always withdraw that filing. But the onus is on, the short answer is the onus is on the property owner.
Can I query the clerk? Do you remember roughly when we had the notice posted?
For Board of Review, that was, when did I post that? May?
I have that.
It's not on my agenda here. May 3rd? End of April, it was posted physically and then in the paper the following week. So, open book was April 21st and 22nd. It was a physical open book at City Hall. But you opened up open book online for a while.
Open book was opened on April 21st. And then our open book notices were mailed the 29th. And Board of Review was posted on each of those statements as far as the assessor goes.
Yeah, I'm kind of disagreeing with the dates, because if I'm calling the company that's in charge of the assessment, and I'm going back and forth verbally on the phone call and also in text and emails, and they're leading me to believe that we are going to work something out, just give me the information, and I continually send emails with no response. I'm under the impression that we are going to work something out. And that just didn't happen. I did my due diligence, making phone calls, sending emails, and doing what I had to do, under the impression that they were telling me that we'd work something out. If you give us the information, we'll take a look at it. That just did not happen, not because of me, it's because of the company. So I was led to believe, based on their response through phone calls and through emails, that we were going to exchange information and make something happen. So I'm not agreeing with the deadline dates, because I was led to believe that this was going to take place, and it never happened for whatever the reason.
We will always take in consideration any conversation or additional information a property owner would like to supply, but it is and should never be an understanding that that would then always mean there's going to be an adjustment of value, although I can understand that if we request something, that can be the hope of the conversation. I know as far as the emails you and I exchanged, it was regarding one property, one parcel, and I had noted it. There was really no large conversation about it or information shared. Again, I don't want to go too far into that, because that's not the point of this part of the discussion, but I can understand its impact for the board's decision on whether to hear it or not. So I'm not purposely withholding. I just want to be careful of that line there.
Well, I actually have the emails that I sent you here,
Sure.
and with no response from your company. And I can go back in the records into April on my phone and pull up the phone calls that I made to the company also, with we'll follow up, we'll follow up.
Oh,
And there was never no follow-up.
is that the automatic generated when you email, potentially?
No, I talked to somebody on the phone and left messages, and I have a bank of emails here also with no response.
Yeah, I'd have to do some research if that was accurate or not.
Well, it is accurate. I have it right here. I can forward them to you, because your name is actually on them.
Yeah, I can see that beginning, and it was just regarding that single parcel.
No, if you read through the emails, I responded to you that, and I said, no, it's not just that single parcel. It's all of the parcels, if you read through them.
Are they within the open book email?
What do you mean by that?
On the like, who's responding? My name might be in the signature, but it doesn't say the open book, Stoughton City.
I just got Best, Lori.
I just want to make sure I'm searching in the right
First
space.
Data Manager, Assessor 3. That's what's on the bottom of them.
I'd have to take a look.
And I also have a couple that I sent to the company prior to this, before this all started, and you were asking for an appraisal, but there was no follow-up on the appraisal either. Because I had an appraisal done not for this purpose, but Settlers Bank sold the wings, and they wanted to make sure things were well collateralized in their company with the purchase. So they're the ones that ordered the appraisal, not me. And it just coincidentally is coinciding with the increase in value. I was told by the bank executives, also by the guy that did the appraisal, who was Andrew Bussett, that I should come in here even before this was talked about after I received the appraisal, that I should come in here at this time. And then I got another big increase in the property. So we were talking about the last year's appraisal, the last year's assessment was incorrect. And then on top of that, I got the new assessment. So this was all going to take place, and that's why I started in April of calling and contacting to to make sure that this was all going to take place, and I was just never got a return response from whether it was you or somebody in the company that you work.
And I guess something I'll add into, let's say we did make an adjustment of value, that still doesn't take away their ability, a property owner's ability to contest. So whether there's a response or no response or a change or a no change, the property owner still retains the right to contest value, if that kind of makes sense.
All right, does the board wish to hear this case then?
I don't have any objection to it.
While I understand the confusion and the back and forth, the specific question is should we waive the rules based on the reason given? And personally, I feel like there still could have been an objection placed within the 48 hours. So I lean towards no.
Little bit of an interesting one, but based on the 48-hour situation, I'm leaning to agree with Patrick on this. I don't see how they're something that was restricting the individual from placing an objection before the 48-hour period.
And I do agree with that as well. I mean, if there was like, you know, a medical thing that occurred or, you know, a family emergency, I think I would be a little bit more open to it. It could have been submitted and it could have been withdrawn, you know, even up until the point of our meeting today. So I would support going forward with it.
All right, I'm going to align with that too, along the rules line. So we have a 4 to 2.
Do we have to have a motion and vote on that, or what is the protocol?
Follow in line, let's go ahead and take a motion.
All right, I would entertain a motion to hear the case.
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
No.
No. No.
All right. The nays have this one. I did. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Yeah, it was 4 to 2.
Yep. Do we have any other cases?
I do not.
All right, and we'll stand until noon.
So do we need a motion to
If you can.
recess?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would make a motion to recess until noon.
Second.
My
All right, all in favor, aye.
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 And any opposed? All right.
It is.
Okay.
reach it, they cut us a check, which they always did, because their value was only like 10 million. So, and their appraisal, their assessment had never gone up. I mean, because if you look at their tax collections, so in 2017 when they opened, they paid $221,000 a year. It's been going down. You know, then it was 226, 223, 214. It was all the way down to 166 until it went up to 208. Their property taxes are lower today than they were in 2017 because of the mill rate dropping, even with their guarantee, and they're complaining. You know, we go up there 100 times a year for police alone. For many people that are having issues that are not city residents. So I told my state legislator, I'm like, next time they have a shoplifting, they can call the state patrol. Because the state's collecting sales tax money, we're not getting a penny from Walmart. You know, that's how fed up I am with it. He looked at me and I'm like, just kidding, but I'm just making a point.
So
All
should
right,
we,
everybody, let's, we've come in from recess now, and I hope you had a good time outside. We'll come in to adjourn the meeting. We are past 12. Motion to adjourn, anybody?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, and a second? Second. Take your pick on the second. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.